Hello, and today we are finally doing not a Block Wars Origins team review, but a Pandora's Box team review and predictions. We haven't done a non-Block Wars Origins video in a while, but we're finally returning to non-Block Wars Origins team reviews. The teams for this event are absolutely insane. They are very crazy. So I'm definitely going to enjoy this. If you like the video, make sure to like and maybe even subscribe. But with that, let's get in. First up, we have the Crimson Cyclopes with Ghosty Fruit, CPK, Firebreath Man, and MC Morgan plays. Now, most of this team, in at least their last event, has had rough performances. Unless you don't count being drunk, then I guess that's not really a rough performance, but that's the only performance she has from PB. So make of that what you will. But Ghosty, for her first time, did not do the best. She came like 29th, which was very unfortunate, but I don't remember if she was a sub. I think she was, since she wasn't meant to play. So obviously, very little time to prepare, and yeah. And then we have Shane, who last event got 11th, which was not the greatest, despite being tough, or teamed with tough. That did not help him, and he didn't even get top 10, let alone top 8, which was very unfortunate for him. Just overall, he didn't have like the best event, but yeah. And then the only person here who's actually had a few good events recently is Morgan, who's gone back to back wins, which is pretty insane if you think about it. He won the Christmas PB, which was PB10, and then PB8. So he's been on a very good high lately. And he's definitely going to be trying to bring that energy with the rest of his team's bad performances. As far as like individually, Shane is usually just good at most games. Although last event he did not do quite well at some of the games. Obviously, he tends to lean a bit toward movement more, while still being pretty decent at PvP. And then we have Ghosty, who's also like kind of an all rounder. She can do like very well. If she like knows the games well enough, she can do very well. So I definitely think she can improve off of her last performance if she like VOD reviews. Because mechanically she's not that bad. She can go pretty crazy. And then Morgan's gonna definitely keep up his streak of doing well in PB. He's been going crazy, and he's just basically gonna try and do solid at everything. He's not really like, I can't really define anything he's like strong at, because he's just decent at everything. And then we have Callum, who has only played once while drunk, but I would definitely think if he VOD reviews, he can definitely do pretty solid in like the movement games. PvP, it might be rougher, but yeah. So I definitely think this is a strong hyperdrive team. And unfortunately, speedrun is blown up, so yeah. Will there be a new movement game? Who knows? And I guess Gauntlet's kind of hard to put, but I definitely think they'd also be like pretty decent at that. And yeah. Next up, we have the Hazel Hydras with Locky Nest, Thong Fortnite, It's Iggles Piggles, and Remote Birch 5. Though this event, or this team in general, just sees the return of Locky Nest since PB4, I believe, which was a long time ago. Like, very long time ago. So he has not played a lot since. But he can theoretically still get back-to-back wins despite the very long gap, which is pretty exciting to see. We also see the return of Remote, who hasn't played in a little bit. Not too far, but just a little bit. And then we see the return of the Sam and Piggles duo, which is always a great duo to see return. Now, Loki, he's definitely going to try and go for back to back after his last event. So he's definitely going to try and keep the momentum from that last event, or at least the winning part, because most of that event didn't go well, other than Sky High, but that's besides the point. And then Remote has not done the best. Specifically, last event, it did not go well. He has only played like very few events, so that may skew his like performance. But I definitely think he can do way better than he did last event. I think he's like slightly underrated, and he can definitely like shine when he needs to. I think he can definitely get not bottom 8. And then we have Piggles, who did win last event he played in, and he did quite well. He got a solid top 8. I think it was 7th, but he did quite well. And obviously, he's just very good, like overall. Maybe less at like parkour, but he's still like very good overall, especially at PvP. Maybe not as much as he used to, but he's still like very good. And then we have Sam, who's sort of more of the opposite because he's definitely better at movement than PvP, but he definitely can still be like good. So yeah, I definitely think this team will have pretty good chemistry, especially with the Sam and Piggles duo, which is just like a very like strong duo altogether. Even if Piggles doesn't do the best sometimes, he can still very much do very well, as we've seen in events like PB5. So as far as games this team will do well in, I definitely think it's a bit mixed, but I'm leaning more towards PvP, especially games like Sky High and survival games. This team can go very crazy. I would say Minor Mania, but that's not as much about PvP and more about like strategy. So they can do well in it, but it's for sure. Which also applies to Chase. But yeah. Next up we have the Golden Griffins with SMK, Stand 05, Notzels, and Pixel Craftian. Now this team is a very chaotic team, and it's also very decent. They're just overall like not too bad. SMK did very well last event, despite losing by like 3 points, but that's besides the point. And he's proven in recent events that he can do well in several games, no matter what they are. And then we have Nair, who's had very unfortunate events. And by that, he's barely been able to play some of them. Specifically, Speedrun just kills him. So he's probably thankful that Speedrun is gone, even though he's not that bad at it. It just, for some reason, kills his internet. But overall, he's just very good at everything. More aligns towards PvP, but he can still do very well in PvP games, as seen in Pandora's Box 10 during Jumping Mad 2. And then we have Jack. And Jack's like all over the place. He can do like very well, but he can also have like very like poor performances. But he can pop off, and that's what matters. He can show that he can do amazing at times. His last PB, which was I believe PB10, he proved he can do very well. So I think that's something right there. And then we have Pixel, who, like I said, for many videos is just Pixel, because I'm gonna be real, he's just a wild card. I have zero idea what games he does good in. He's just like a wild card in general, so I can't really predict how well he does. As far as games, this team will do good in. It's a bit mixed. It's definitely leaning more towards movement, but the movement games for this event, I don't really know how well they'll do good at. I definitely think Jumping Mad is like an okay game for them. And same with Hyperdrive. So even though they look like a mechanically good like movement team, it seems more leaning toward PvP, which is kind of weird, but that's whatever. I do think this team can do well in like team games. So like Minor Mania and Chalice Chase. I definitely think they can do very well in that. I think their comms can be like very well in those games. And then obviously Gauntlet's Gauntlet. But yeah. Next up we have the Mint Mermaids with Ogarfield, Purple, Mystica, and Anthos. Now, when I saw this team, I was like, what? This is illegal. This just seems like an overly strong team. We have the very good block placement duo of Purple and Ogar. And then we have Misty and Anthos, who aren't even that bad. And Misty as a supposed third frag is insane to me. But anyway, obviously Purple really outdid himself last event. He got second on and most people individually weren't predicting him to do like as good as he actually did. Obviously, his team was predicted to do well no matter what, but his performance was like out of the water, just like absolutely insane. So props to him. And then we have Ogar, who's had like a few mixed events. He has done very well most of the time, but he does slip up from time to time. But otherwise, he is another just very strong player. Then we have Misty, who they're just also like pretty decent. They did not have the best event last event. They did not do as good as some of their previous events, but they have definitely shown from those past few events that they can thrive and they can still do like very well, which is absolutely huge. And then we have Anthos. Now, Anthos, despite doing, I think his last event was Pandora Box 10, but despite having a team that did very well, they still did not do like the best, or he didn't do the best individually. But I definitely think he can definitely still like do decent, no matter what. This is a very strong team. Like he will have them like backing him up, so that will help a ton. That'll just make him like more confident, be able to play more of his like game. Now, as far as games this team is good at, it's hard to really say. Even though when he's in a movement team, there's not many block placing games involved in this event. There are certainly movement games, but not like block placing in general. So I do think PvP could work well from them here. I don't know how most of the other movement games work. I do think though that Jumping Mad 2 would be a very strong game for them. They're all pretty like decent at parkour, so they will definitely thrive there. But games like Hyperdrive, I'm more like unsure about. They also seem like a very strong like PvP team. I can see them doing like very well SG, Sky High, and in Minor Mania. Like they just seem like mechanically built to where they can do very well in those games. Just like overall, they just seem not too weak in anything. Even Chalice, in my opinion. Chalice is another game where I think they can easily thrive. And yeah. Next up, we have the Diamond Dragons with Wolfie, Fruitberries, Antfrost, and Ted Zadok. Now, this sees the long awaited return of Ted Zack. He has not played since Pandora's Box 2, and a lot has changed from that event. So, it will definitely be more rougher for him in terms of coming back to the event. But otherwise, this team is relatively decent. Wolfie did finally come back from an event win in PV, which is pretty good for him. Although he hasn't had the best run in this event. Even on that winning team, he didn't get top half. I believe he got like very close though. But still a far cry from like other events that he does very well in. But he's still not too bad at PB. Then we have Ant, who's just very good overall. He's a very much a grinder and VOD reviewer, and we've seen he can put in the work watching all those VODs and practicing, so he's got the skills to back it up as well. And then we have Fruit, who did do very well in some of the games for the first time, and I don't remember if I think he got like 11th, which is almost top 10, which is pretty decent. There were definitely a lot of unfortunate games for him, but even still, he still did quite well. So that is something. Now, as far as games go that this team will do good in, I'm not too sure. A lot of them are not as good as other games as others. We obviously saw Fruit completely dominate Disco Fever and more like movement related games in general. Not so much in PvP though. And then we have Wolfie, who it's kind of hard to pin his like good games in PB. It's really more like just all rounded for most of the games. There's nothing he really excels to like good at. And honestly, Ted, I think Ted is more PvP oriented, as we've seen from events like Block Wars. He can do some very good work in those PvP games. So that will definitely help, especially against like SG and Sky High. Although we do not know the map, but I'm assuming it's the same as last time. And then we have Ant, who is also just like another good all-rounder, just like strong at everything. Although I do think Disco might be a bit weaker. So it's very hard to pinpoint exactly what this team is good at. But I do think Hyperdrive could be pretty good for them. And maybe even Jumping Mad too. I think those are both like pretty decently strong games for them. It might be not as strong as the other games for like other teams, but it's still like decently strong. I can definitely see them doing quite well in them. Next up, we have the Cobalt Centaurs with Force of It, Radoons, Boostver, and Amston. Now, this is an OP team, to say the least, and has definitely been seen by many of the people in the community as a broken team, and it's kind of hard not to say this is not a broken team, because it quite literally is. Their weakest player, in my opinion, is Lucifer, who is even that bad. He might not be the best at PV, kind of like Wolfie, but he's definitely not the worst, to say the least. So this team is definitely very strong. Obviously, Forsey has not played before, but we've seen from like other events that he does like to VOD review and all that, which helps him out a ton. And even if he doesn't know the games like that well, he can still do certainly like very well, no matter what. And then we have Radoons, who's had like mixed performances. Most of them have been like okay, not too like stunning, but they're certainly nothing to scoff at. And some of them have been very well, especially in PvP games. He does quite well. And then we have Ameston, who may haven't have played that much, but he's still like very good at the game. And in the two performances he has done, he is absolutely been stunning. Like he's gone top 8 in both of them, which is very impressive for only very few performances. So that is definitely something not to scoff at. As far as games this team will be at, it's hard to tell because they're just good at everything basically. I can see them easily dominating pretty much everything. They have like very good skill sets all throughout, but I think PvP specifically will be the strong suit, as all of them are pretty decent at it. So games like Temple Lockout, Sky High will just be like a breeze, and they'll just completely dominate them. It's kind of hard to see them not dominate. I can definitely see them dominating movement as well, just not as much, but still like very much easily they can dominate. And this is definitely going to be a hard team to beat. Even if they lack experience, they're still all like very good. So yeah. Next up we have Purple Phoniexes with Chaos 21A, Kalen, Kyle F, and Yonche. Now this team is very interesting. Obviously after the last team, it is not as strong, but it's still like decently strong in terms of like strength and all. Obviously, Yon has not played since she's won, so it has been a while. Oh, she can do well. We can see that. We've seen this in like several events. She can be very underrated. Most time, I think she can get what is it, like top 24. That is a very doable thing. She has proven like time and time again that she can do very well, and this definitely can be a team where she can do well. Also, one on purple. This is a purple team, so anyway. Then we have Kalen, who obviously Kalen is just good at basically everything. Although he leans way more towards movement. He's just way better at movement games in general compared to PvP. He is good at PvP, but he's just not as good as movement. And I definitely think that's proven in games like Jumping Mad and such. Like he's just way better at movement. But anyway, then we have Chaos. Oh, Chaos is like kind of mixed for me. He can do very well in PvP. He's seen getting top 8 before, but sometimes he just barely misses the mark. And I mean like barely. And I definitely feel like there's been teams where he could have gone top 8 on, but he just didn't. Yeah. He is definitely a PvP main. He definitely enjoys PvP games a lot. And he definitely shows because he's way better at them in general compared to most other. He's still decent at movement and such, just not as much as PvP. And then we have Kyle, who has done like okay. He's had like mixed performances. Himself, he hasn't done like too amazing in most games, but he hasn't done like too bad either. So he's just kind of like in the average place. Now, as far as games this team will be good at, I'm really not too sure. It's like very mixed for me. They're all just they all like cancel each other out, their weaknesses out. So what ends up happening is they're just gonna be like average at everything. They're not gonna be too strong at anything, but they're not gonna be like the worst at anything. That's what I see. But yeah. And last but not least, we have the Pink Pegasi with Fulham, Feinberg, Curryway, and President Poundcake, making this a full HPG team. Now, obviously, this is the first time for Curry and Poundy, but I do think that won't matter. Obviously, they have very little experience under their bag with Fulham and Fine only both playing one event. and Fulham being drunk for his event. But I definitely think they can definitely do very well and them being all HPG members and all knowing each other pretty well will definitely help a lot, especially in team games. I definitely think Minor Mania and such will be very good for them. But anyway, Fine did absolutely amazing in his first event, absolutely destroying the predictions and getting first. He did well in most games. Disco Fever though was not very good, but that's Disco Fever. But anyway, he did amazing in PvP, like good in all the movement games, and his in team games he did very well as well. He just did very well and absolutely dominated, especially Sky High. And then we have Fulham, which is a bit harder to pinpoint because he was drunk in that first event. When events he wasn't drunk in, he's usually like okay. He can do like very well, though. He has been shown to do very well, especially in more like non-PvP oriented games. He can easily dominate, which is incredible. And then we have Pound Cake, who does have like very little like event experience, not like too much. I believe they only have Mayhem under the belt, but still, he's like very like decent, and he can definitely prove that he can do very well. So this team, being all speedrunners, they have a lot of knowledge, which helps them in games that require them like different Minecraft mechanics and such. So it's definitely their strong suit. And then we have Curry, and honestly, Curry's just good. He does good at most games. Obviously, not as much in PvP, but he's definitely a very clean movement player and just very good in general. I definitely can see him doing good in like hyperdrive and jumping mad too. Now, as far as games, other than the team games I've said, I definitely can see this team just dominating movement. Maybe not hyperdrive as much, but jumping mad too and gauntlet too. I definitely can see them doing absolutely insane. This team is just mechanically built very well, which is going to help them a lot, and which is absolutely insane. I think this team can definitely do very well with the right conditions, even if they have two newcomers. And now, last but not least, we have the predictions. The big thing, I guess. And this was definitely tough. I will tell you that. Making these predictions was really rough for me because all these teams to me can get top two. Like they're just all like very good. So it's like very hard for me to be like what team's gonna make finale and what's not. But anyway, here are the predictions. First off, we have purple in 8th. In 7th, we have orange. In 6th, we have diamond. In 5th place, we have crimson. In 4th place, we have gold. In 3rd place, we have pink. In 2nd place, we have cobalt. And in 1st place, we have green. Thank you all for watching this Pandora's Box team review and predictions. It has been a while since I have done one of these and a different event in general. I don't know what the next event I will review. It probably won't be Block Wars though, because they are going on break for Series 2. So do expect other events in the meanwhile for that gap. But anyways, bye-bye.